How do you get ahead of 99% of people this year?
I got into what I would call enlightenment porn.
Enlightenment is the answer. Obviously, enlightenment has nothing to do with comparing yourself to 99% of people, but it seems to be the only thing that really matters in life.
What's an ideal death for you?
I guess the ideal would be, it would be good to have self-realized before that, ultimate truth. It would be good.
Enlightenment. Now, I watched this interview 3 times, and to save you time, I've compiled 27 clips in these 12 categories. And at the end, Naval also shares 8 people and 6 books to get a deeper understanding for yourself. I'm Jordan, I've made over $5 million, hired 50 people, but those things don't matter. So let's start with what is enlightenment.
A Buddha, not the Buddha, but a Buddha, any enlightened person, they don't have any sense of persistent separate self. And so they're always answering at the universal level. And in that sense, they're freed of contradictions. And I think the reason we admire those people is because we ourselves want to be freed of this internal contradiction.
Buddha means enlightened one. And according to Naval, an enlightened person has no persistent sense of separate self. So an enlightened person does not think about themselves, let alone compare him or herself, which is why I found this clip funny.
I definitely think that Naval Ravikant is already on that ladder as compared to other human beings.
I have no idea where I'm on that ladder.
You don't think you're slightly more evolved?
No, it's a loaded question. First of all, I don't think of myself. I just want to be clear on that. And that's not a rule, it's just a habit I've kind of developed. Because I found that thinking about yourself is a source of all unhappiness and misery.
Really?
Yes. Self-obsession is the root of all unhappiness. What did Buddha do? Conquer the self. What does that mean? It means that he saw through the illusion of the separate self. What does that, did Buddha think about himself? Not for an instant. Anyone that you think of as an enlightened being does not think about themselves
for an instant. The happiest people in life, when people are at their best, is because they love something more than they love themselves. They love their children, they love God, they love their mission, what have you.
And all misery comes from rumination, from sitting around, being depressed, going in circles in your own head about me, me, me. Me is a disease.
Me is a disease. And thinking about yourself is the source of all unhappiness and misery. When I think about this, it just sounds so true.
You stop thinking about yourself because thoughts are what drive the self-obsession. The self is ultimately just a thought. The self is a thought that I am a separate creature, I'm a body, I'm a mind. And if you truly were not thinking, like you're in deep meditation or you're on a psychedelic or you're a Buddha, you wouldn't have a thought of the self and you'd just be aware. That's all there is.
The self is just a thought. But then how does Naval not think about himself?
You need a concept of a me to be effective and to keep track of things. You have a memory, you have certain predilections, you have personality patterns. But the more you self-obsess, the less happy you're going to be. I guarantee you that. And I'm not saying I don't think about myself to be happy. I can't even tell you why I don't think about myself. I think it just comes from having thought through a lot of things. And then I get interested in topics and concepts and ideas and understandings. And the more that I sort of focus that way, the less I just end up thinking about myself. So even people ask me like, oh, how's your day going? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't think about it.
Really?
Maybe if I'm really tired, I'll say, okay, I'm tired. If something really bad happened, like, oh, it wasn't a great day. But most of the time, I couldn't even tell you my own state of mind because I'm not interested in it. I don't think it's interesting.
That brings me to perhaps the elephant in the room. How do you actually become enlightened?
I think we all want to know the truth. And there's little truths and there's big truths and there's bigger truths. And this is probably the biggest truth, right? And I did cheat. I skipped to the end. I looked at the answer. It might have been a mistake, to be honest, because the point is not to earn a PhD in enlightenment. It's to actually be enlightened, right? And so I don't know exactly how you get there. There doesn't seem to be a copyable path, but I'm still fascinated with it. My mind is still circling the drain on it.
There doesn't seem to be a copyable path to enlightenment. Well, here's what he means with that.
There are as many paths as there are people. And because you created an individual story, right? There's kind of an awareness or a consciousness. Everything that you experience is in this awareness. It arises in the awareness. It's probably made of awareness. It's known by awareness. So what else is there? Everything is intermediated through your awareness. And then on top of that, you layer your identity and your body and your problems and your issues and your achievements and your desires. And then eventually you unlayer all of that and you lose that and you go back to this undifferentiated awareness, which has kind of always been around. It's a hypothesis. I don't know if it's true. A lot of people say it,
There are as many paths as there are people. So Naval, is Hinduism not a path?
Hinduism gets closer than anybody else, but any ism isn't going to quite get you there because it's an individual thing.
It's an individual thing. So avoid the following trap that I've seen in a lot of people.
But I am very deeply, I hate the word, but it's spiritual, right? And I would define spiritual in a negative way. It just means not mental, not physical, right? So
But why do you hate the word, sir?
because it's overloaded with a lot of religiosity. All of a sudden, you're supposed to be a spiritual being. You're supposed to do yoga. And you're supposed to meditate. And you're supposed to sit cross-legged. And you're supposed to, then you argue about is it the Bhagavad Gita or the Ashtavakra Gita or all of these roads lead to the same place.
And that place doesn't matter if you care about true peace. After all, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So then, what does matter?
What matters is truth, not who says what or where you lived or what book you read. What just matters is what's true. And that you can figure out for yourself. And you can figure it out just as well as me. And you probably have. Your core experience of your awareness, same as mine. Every emotion you felt, I felt. Every emotion I felt, you felt. We're human. No human experience is alien to us. So we can have all the same feelings and thoughts, just at different levels and different bases.
Truth. But don't fall for this trap either.
There are things that have a greater truth composition than others. You just have to get away from this binary thinking of true and false. So there are things that are more true and there are things that are less true.
Truth density. Some things are more true than others. In my weekly email, I write about the things that I think are closer to truth. So if you care about truth, then you can read my 2-minute letters that you automatically receive if you access my free Google Sheet with 80 plus free tools that I use in my business and personal life, all unsponsored and unaffiliated, and no sales stuff, just truth. Which brings me to the question, does Naval consider himself enlightened?
Obviously, at some level, I'm not fully serious about it, because if I was serious about it, I would be there.
Honestly, same with me, and perhaps with you too, because if you are really serious about it, then given enough time, wouldn't you get there? As of this moment, I care more about this me, and all the attachments I have to the people and things in my life, which is why I am the other end next to Naval.
I sort of reject this idea that I'm wiser or more advanced. I don't think that's true. No, if I was wise, I'd be a Buddha. I'm not. So it's like, two ants debating like who's smarter, and then there's like a human walking around over there, right? What does it matter?
If I was wise, I would be a Buddha. Beautifully said. So then how does Naval think he could become a Buddha?
Enlightenment is not something you necessarily, from what I can tell, it's not something you necessarily find or create. It's more just unlearning. It's a shedding. It's what remains when everything else is gone. So it is a mini death of its own sort. It is a death of the separate self in the mind.
So what he's saying is that enlightenment is not learning something new, but instead it's an unlearning of everything that you believe to be true, but isn't. That is a profound insight, because I think most people confuse enlightenment with the following.
I don't think experiences are the thing.
Did the distractions?
Yes, any experience that comes will also go. The thing that matters is what your state of mind is. At 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon when you're sitting by yourself, how do you feel? Are you peaceful? Are you happy? Are you good? 2:37 p.m. you're walking down the street. Are you okay? How do you feel? Are you good? That's what matters, right? It's the exact moment in time. What is your internal state? What is your external state? What are the thoughts that are going through your head, if any? That's what matters. So I don't want bliss for an hour a day. That's just another experience that comes and goes. I want something that's indestructible.
So enlightenment seems not to be an experience, but that it is indestructible, lasting peace. Which brings me to memento mori. Listen closely.
I mean, if you could keep your death in front of you at all times, you would live a magical life. Then you would value the exact moment as being the complete and wholesome and only real sacred thing that exists.
Living with death all the time will be a magical life? Well, I think there's nuance to that, because some people feel fear when they think about their own death. Additionally, I'm also not sure to what extent a Buddha would think about themselves, right? About their own death. And Naval said this too.
I don't think about myself. I don't think about what's changed in my life and if my life is good or bad, or if this happened or that happened. And I don't look at old photos of me, and I don't think about old trips, and I don't think about people that are gone. I don't think about the past. I just don't live in the past at all.
So if you live in the present and have conquered your mind, surpassed it, or however you want to call it, then I don't think memento mori is something you would be doing. Anyways, here's a very practical insight into the pathless way to stop this self-obsession.
The reason I don't self-obsess anymore, or never even got that into it, is because I just found it both a waste of time, as well as it was just destroying my happiness. Happiness is a big word, so more peace. It was intruding on my peace.
So when I thought about this, I came to the following conclusion. The more you realize for yourself that self-obsession has been removing your peace, then the less you will self-obsess without any effort. And this brings me to a profound insight that I got after hearing the following.
Once they've seen through the illusion of the separate self, they're no longer self-obsessed, and therefore their love that was earlier turned inwards and became ego, love for the self, went outward, and it still flows.
The feeling of being in love with people or things is greater than the feeling of being loved, because you can be in love all the time. Wow. But then does this mean that you have to love everything and everyone to be enlightened?
People will sometimes say, well, that's not a Buddha because that person's not loving enough. Well, that's not necessarily true. Love is not a requirement for being a Buddha, but it is an output, because a Buddha is a person who has seen through the illusion of the separate self.
Seeing through the illusion of a separate self. I still honestly have a hard time seeing this, probably like many. And if you have the same, even though there doesn't seem to be a path, where could you perhaps find answers? Or maybe, to be more precise with my words, higher density truths?
I think anyone who is highly truth-seeking will eventually find their way to Eastern philosophy.
Eastern philosophy. This brings us to Naval's books you may read. Disclaimer though, if the trap of life is to keep seeking, then reading more books will keep you trapped. Think about it. Anyways, here's Naval.
And I do read a lot of old Indian texts.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan of, obviously everyone says Bhagavad Gita, but I like the Ashtavakra Gita, if you've read that one. Yeah.
Didn't expect you to say that.
No, Ashtavakra Gita is amazing. Vasistha's Yoga, which has a lot of the enlightenment stories. Hermann Hesse wrote that book Siddhartha, which is kind of a fictionalized Buddha story. But, I've read, Raja Yoga and Autobiography of Yogi and all that stuff. Osho, Krishnamurti, blah, blah, blah. De Mello.
Well, here are the 6 books that he mentioned. And here are the 3 people that he mentioned. But there's one more book that honestly I never heard before.
Does the Mahabharata have any influence on your mind?
I don't remember it too well. I think, now this is where I'm going to just offend a lot of people, but I think that's mostly a historical thing. And obviously everything, old Indian mythology has a lot of spirituality weaved into it, but no, it's not one that I've spent much time on.
Okay. It's more the philosophies like the Ashtavakra Gita and all that.
Yeah, I love the Ashtavakra Gita. It's incredible. The Song of Self-Realization.
Talking about self-realization, here are 5 other people that Naval found inspirational.
Like right now, I'm on YouTube and I'm watching old Krishnamurti talks, or I'm watching Papaji, Muji, Rupert Spira, Ascendor, random YouTube videos. The guy has like 10 followers, but he's enlightened. The YouTube algorithm is really good. It finds enlightened good people if you just click around far enough.
Well, here are the 5 people that he just mentioned. Just don't fall for the following trap if you really care about being enlightened.
All that stuff is inspirational, and you can only kind of do it if you want.
I repeat, you can only do it if you really want it. No book will get you there. No mentor or guru seem to get you there. No video like this seems to get you there.
And I tracked down about a dozen of these people in real life, and I interviewed them, and I met them, and I spent time with them, and I meditated, and I did all that stuff. But the conclusion I kind of came to is that you got to figure it out yourself.
Enlightenment is a mountain you climb alone. Or better said, a mountain path that you return from until eventually you find your way back to this baby or child you once was. No sense of a persistent, separate self. But what if along the way, along this pathless path, you get confused?
The paradoxical answers come from, do you choose to adopt the viewpoint of yourself as a separate person, or do you take the viewpoint of your spiritual self?
If you want to know more about what Naval means with that and his 10 insights to the question, what is the meaning of life, then watch this video. Trust me, it's good. Talk soon.